Pilgrimage is the Canadian musical story of 18 different albums created by musician Steve Bell. Steve has won 2 Junos and all kinds of other awards. He has been heard in many a church and 24 orchestral symphony concert venues across Canada. Give it up for Winnipeg's Steve Bell. I just loved the Pilgrimage collection. Thank you. I loved it. Marking 25 years of singing songs, creating 18 albums. You are famous for what you sing, but are you okay that we peg you today as a storyteller?
Oh, yeah. I come from a long line. My grandfather was a storyteller. My dad is a storyteller. And I never intended to be a storyteller. It just started happening. And now it's really common after concerts. People say, they'll come back after concerts and say, I just love it when you tell this story and this story and this story. And then they walk away and say, oh, I like your music too. Almost that they're embarrassed that they missed that part or something. It's fine. Yeah.
Okay, well, we began this program by exploring the money and the story that goes into all the technology that shapes our stories now. Right. And I was so delighted to watch you in symphony and then to watch your symphony series and how you pull together all these different elements to spark our imagination. Let's just play a little clip of that.
Okay.
Burning ember, shine forever in the darkest tomb. Warmth of heaven.
Okay, so Steve, you've created 24 symphony concerts like that across Canada.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, those are amazing to be in that many symphony concerts, 18 albums, all kinds of entertainment, and it still requires tax subsidy. Like, this is still not a market feasible life.
No, it's not. And my little enterprise is relatively small. But oh no, art's really expensive. And getting people out and getting the message out to people, it's just the costs are huge. And it's not just tax dollars, it's developing patrons and like you have to go everywhere you can.
So we don't realize the incredible web that's underneath the stories that have meaning in this country.
I think probably the least thing I spend my time at is music. Most of my time is doing all that other sort of substructure stuff so that we can sing a song to somebody.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Steve, your manager, Dave Zaglinski,
yeah.
he's just, you guys are so tight for decades now. Yeah. Songs, even in an album about Dave's child, longing for a child. Yeah. No artist I've ever seen has a longer list of credits. You really can't do anything alone, can you?
Oh no, I know. You talk about the thanks at the end of the thing? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, there's 6,000 names there, and they're all, seriously.
I lost count, 6,000.
Yeah, and there's many, I'm sure there's going to be all kinds of people that we didn't include, but we just wanted that to kind of, not specifically name those people, but to say, like, this is what it takes. It takes a community to grow an artist. Artists traditionally have always grown out of the community. They've never been sort of creators of widgets for the market. That's something that sort of has happened in the last, 50, 60 years as markets have become the primary way. But now that retail is collapsing, we have to go back to patronage again. We have to go convince the community that we're serving the community, not ourselves, to make our art. And I think actually it's kind of good.
Wow, okay, so among those many friends is the talented Andrew Wall, who produced this documentary, Burning Ember. Watch this.
He's a storyteller. It doesn't have to be just set in music. There is a voice that can be had in other mediums. And we do think that for a 54-year-old, you can't be a sage if you're 30.
Did it take you maturing to be able to tell these deeper stories of our lives?
Well, yeah, and the thing is that the stories, they develop their depth as you tell them, actually. Like every time you tell the story, every time I tell a story I told yesterday, I'm a day older, I've got a day more experience, and so I'm actually going to see the story differently than I did yesterday. And the more you tell it, the more you find significance in it, and it kind of presents itself to you. So people have often said, I've been to 10 concerts, I've heard that story 10 times, it's never the same. And it's because you are a different person entering into that story again, and you have a different interpretive lens. So of course, the older you get, the more you've got behind you, the more you're going to be able to dig and find meaning in there. And in the end, that's what storytelling is, I think, is meaning making.
You've had some sad stories, and finances have been part of that. I want you just to roll this little piece here from Burning Ember, and then let's talk about it.
We took on a lot of financial debt during that period. We kept 2 staff probably a year longer than we should have. You know, and a lot of that expense got racked up on credit cards. We ended up with nasty credit card debt. We stopped having the questions about how can we move the ministry forward, and the conversation became, how can we wind this down in a way that doesn't become a burden to someone else when we're done?
What can save me? What can save me?
Where all of a sudden you're just looking at a bill and you realize you've got a $12,000 bill and you've got a $12,000 guitar. One of my favorite guitars of all time I lost.
Steve, I didn't realize you lost your home in the country over
Yeah.
this industry. You lost that favorite guitar. What is the story when our lives hit financial tough times?
Well, for me, the big story is when I was taught when I was a kid, and that there's a good God that created a good universe. That universe has got a history of being broken, and so there's going to be trouble and strife. But Yahweh, God's very name, is I'm going to be with you. There's lots of days I don't enjoy, but there's no such thing as a bad one, because there's a good God walking with me through that, and there's gift in that day and that event for me right now. So the art of life, I think, is where's the gift? You know, and when you can develop that, then even as family crisis is happening, financial crisis is happening, it's just, you're entering your world with a very different thing if this is just a meaningless universe of random atoms bumping up against each other, and this happens to be unpleasant for you today. And there's nothing you can do about it.
Okay, so the Christian story shapes you.
It sure shaped me.
Okay, and there are 40,000 places of worship in this country, places of worship. You've played in, I was going to say all of them, but many of them. Many of
Quite a few
them.
of them.
But you wrote the song Restless.
Yeah.
Because it was not always easy for you to walk into a church. Why not?
You know, about 10, 15 years ago, I had a number of experiences. Went to Israel, sort of caught a bit of the flavor of the Palestinian narrative. Came back, had some financial problems. It was also right when the church was spending millions and millions of dollars fighting the gay marriage issue, while people on our own reserves are starving, and those children aren't being funded with their education. And I just thought, where have we become unmoored so much, you know? And I just became so distraught in my own being about it. And I found it was very hard to enter a church for quite a long time.
So now I want to play a clip of a song that I think reflects into that.
You dropped down from the mountain sheer, forsook the eagle for the dove. The other gods demanded fear, but you gave love. The other gods demanded fear, but you gave love.
At the core of that, what are you trying to say to us?
Well, that song talks about, you know, comparing Christ with the Roman gods of the first century, who were not a nice lot. They were capricious, they were competitive, they were rapacious. And all of a sudden, there's a story about this God that comes down, cares enough to come into the lowest place and permeate all of God's creation from the lowest place up, rather than the royal place down. And it's a different story than what we normally think about power and how change comes, and that the sovereign of the cosmos would lower that to that level and then move up through the bottom is a stunning reversal from pharaonic logic, you know, of the pharaohs of empires. And it changes everything. For God so loved the world is the sentence that changed everything. Because when that was first uttered, that would have been ridiculousness to most people, because gods don't love the world, gods use the world. And the difference, when that was understood and absorbed and changed the story of a small group of people, that has not stopped rippling out for the last couple thousand years.
Let's talk about how family shapes our story. Oh my, your wife Nancy of 35 years,
Yeah.
4 kids, and you're a grandpa.
I
you're
got school-age grandkids.
Yeah, and you're so close. I loved your album, Sons and Daughters.
Yeah.
But you just scratch that record, and I hear all kinds of pain in there. You've had your own depression, you've had your mother's depression, you've had other mental illness in your family, you've had a runaway, you've had anorexia, you've had fears of teen suicide. How do we shape healthy family when life is complicated?
Well, I think, for one, you tell the story that there's a good God at the center of things, and things are broken, so let's not be surprised about that. Let's not be horrified at brokenness. Like, that shouldn't surprise any of us. So when that happens, let's absorb it together, because we do love one another, right? Rather than look for cause and stuff that's beyond us. and let's stand with our backs to each other and sort of defend the other, you know, kind of thing, rather than towards each other, you know, and that kind of love and that kind of capacity to say, your brokenness is not a shock to me. You're not leaving the family because you're broken. I'm not leaving the family because I'm broken. That kind of stuff, and then say, let's hold to this big story and model that as much as possible. And I think you can absorb a lot. I mean, sometimes, not always, but you can. Yeah.
Wow, I think we should listen to this song you've done, because this song makes me think of how much we really need each other's stories. Take a listen.
Christ has no body here but ours. No hands, no feet here on earth but ours. Ours the eyes through which he looks.
So bottom line, we all need to be a lot kinder to each other and our stories.
Yeah, it's simple. And the root of the word kind is kin. And it's just a powerful word. It's not nice. Kindness is not niceness. Kindness operates out of a deeply internalized sense of kinship, that I belong to you and you belong to me. And again, that's a story. You can't prove it, right? But if you tell yourself that story, you get a different culture than if you say you are an isolated individual with your own self-interest and so am I. Let's duke it out for stuff.